We'd like to remind you once again, mobile device video recordings, including live streaming and Periscope of today's press conferences, are not permitted. Flash photography is also not permitted. Please check your phones. Once we start the press conference, if you have a question, please raise your hands. Once you make eye contact with me, we'll get a mic to you eventually, and once you have the mic, you can go ahead and ask your question. We're now ready to begin the Butler News Conference for today. We will open up the floor for questions for the student athletes. Again, if you have a question, please raise your hand and wait until we get you the microphone. Are there any questions? Maddox, can we get one to David here?
David Woods from the Indianapolis Star. For any of you guys, does Coach Holtman ever, elaborate on the the tenets of the Butler way, and specifics and what he expects of you guys? Because it seems like a lot of the foundational things that Butler does, Virginia also does.
Kellen, could you start with that, please?
Yeah, he definitely stressed it early on in the year with some of our young guys. Each week we kind of took a principle that we wanted to focus on. I think that he incorporates it in a lot of things that we do, talking about entitlement and, get it over yourself and team first stuff. So it just encompasses a lot of the principles that we talk about, our values.
Roosevelt, could you comment on that?
Yeah, like Kellen said, he definitely instilled that in us. Definitely a couple years ago when we had that bad season, because we really lost that way, and Holtman made sure to bring that tradition back like Brad Stevens had it. So he wanted to make sure that we knew it. We went over in practice all the time. So, yeah, he definitely instilled it back into us.
Other questions for the student athletes? Let's go over here in the aisle.
Todd Dybus from the Washington Times. For each of you guys, when you look at Virginia, what's the first thing that jumps out at you? Obviously, they're known for their defense, which includes their post-trap and a lot of other things they do very well at that end.
Andrew, could you start, please?
Yeah, like you said, obviously very strong defensively. It's going to be a grind. That's going to be the big thing. It's going to be one possession at a time, and there's going to be ups and downs, but we got to stay even-keeled the entire time with our emotions, and hopefully it all works out for us.
Roosevelt, could you comment?
Yeah, what really jumps out to me is the pace of the game that they play. I think they're the slowest team in the country in pace and tempo, so that really jumps out to me. We know we got to come out, and we're going to have to play the whole 30 seconds on the defensive end. We got to make sure we get them off the glass, because if not, we're going to have to guard them for another 30 seconds. So that's really going to be a key thing for us when we play them.
Kellen, is there anything to add?
Yeah, they're a very tough-minded team. Like Roosevelt said, that they really crash the glass really hard, and that's one thing that can hurt us throughout the year. So we're going to really focus down on that and keeping our guys off.
Okay, we're going right up front here.
Yeah, Whitey Reed with the Daily Progress in Charlottesville. Roosevelt, I guess I was just wondering about being a fifth-year senior. Virginia has a couple of those kind of kids too. How much has that kind of helped you having that extra year, and did you notice that Virginia had a couple players in your similar situation too?
Yeah, I found out today when we went over the scouting report that they had a couple graduate seniors, but yeah, it kind of helps me being here for an extra year, been through the NCAA tournament, all the battles and games that I went through throughout my career, so it kind of helps me out for situations like this. Playing number 1 seed, I played IU when they was number 1 a couple years ago, so I know the type of feel and the atmosphere is going to be tomorrow, so I really think that kind of helped me out for being here for 5 years.
I'm going to go back on the side to David.
David Teal with the Daily Press in Newport News, Virginia. Roosevelt, you mentioned Coach Stevens. 5 years later, do those 2 runs to the national championship game still hover over the program, and have they created expectations for future teams, including yours?
I wouldn't say it created expectations, but it kind of helps us out because everybody knows who Butler is now after the back-to-back Final Four. Before that, when Butler was in a tournament, everybody would be like, who's Butler, even though they had great runs like in the Sweet 16s and things like that. But I feel like the back-to-back Final Four runs, they really helped us. It don't really hurt us really that much.
Any other questions? Let's go up front to Doug.
Kellen, obviously both teams shot the ball well from three-point range yesterday. How big a key is that in this game?
Yeah, I think just as always, it's going to come down to the little things. I think, making shots is definitely going to help and help each team probably separate if we were able to come head-to-head. But I think it'll be a little bit of a difference maker. But most importantly, I think just getting them off the glass, getting back on defense and making everything just hard, making them shoot over us is going to be the main key.
Let's go to Whitey here.
Hi, yeah, Roosevelt, just curious about your thoughts on, Malcolm Brogdon. He's a fifth-year senior, I guess, like you are. What do you think about that potential matchup? Would you be guarding him? And, what have you seen of him sort of on film? Does he remind you in some ways of yourself?
Nah, he's probably a better player than me on the offensive game. But, yeah, we watched some film on him today. He's he moves a lot off the ball. He cuts really hard and tries to scores in a variety of ways. So we try to make sure that I take some of his strengths away when I play against him. So yeah, I will match up with him tomorrow. So I'll be ready for the challenge.
Go right back there, Maddox.
Kellen, getting you off the three-point line is a priority for your opponents. What have certain teams tried to do to get you off of that line, and what do you do to counter what they're doing when they try to cover you up out there?
You're talking about, like, what did I see throughout the year? Or?
Different things to you when you're shooting threes, and how do you work to find open space when people are throwing different things at you defensively?
Yeah, I think, 22 years on this earth, I've seen it all being a shooter. So face guard, boxing one, triangle two, being extremely physical, just something like that. But, the way to counter it is not to force anything. Trust guys like Andrew and Rose that they're going to do their job and make the defense pay for the way that they're guarding me. They always seem to find me when I'm open too, so that makes the game a lot easier. But I think just countering their physicality by just being tough-minded and weathering the storm.
Go back to David up front.
Yeah, also for Kellen, it looks like you got to meet Reggie Miller the other day at open practice. What did you guys talk about, and what did he tell you? Anything about shooting?
Yeah, he said at the end of the game yesterday, you got to empty the chamber and don't leave any bullets left. So coming from him, that's quite a compliment. Just him giving me a little bit of his time was just legendary. Growing up and watching him play, so it was such a blessing to be able to talk to him, and he's a funny guy too. So it was a good time.
Going back on the edge to David.
Andrew, you and Virginia have common opponents in Villanova and Miami. Was curious if you guys had seen any video of them playing those two teams, just so you'd have that baseline of familiarity.
Sorry. Yeah, so for those games, those were early on in the year. We've watched them, like just common stuff, but we've also watched a lot more recent games just to try to figure out what they're doing more often, just their frequencies and stuff like that. But we're aware of like the outcomes of those games and how they played them and how they attacked them. But like I said, we try to see the more frequent stuff just so we can see frequencies during their game.
Do you have a question in the back? No? Okay, any other questions? All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. Good luck tomorrow. Coach Holtman should be here shortly. what we're going to try and do today is stick to the schedule that's on the paper. So Coach Holtman is with CBS now. He's going to be here hopefully at 1:55 as the schedule says. So even if one segment ends early, we're just going to try and stick to the the schedule with the coaches because they have other obligations. We are now ready to begin Coach Holtman's press conference. We're going to just go ahead and open the floor up for questions. Again, if you have a question, please raise your hand, and we'll get you a microphone. And let's just go ahead and start with Mike there in the middle.
Hey, Coach, Mike Barber, Richmond Times-Dispatch. When you look at Malcolm Brogdon and what he's been able to do for them offensively, and particularly in stretches where the rest of the offense doesn't look very good, what makes him so effective?
Well, he's an elite player on both ends. Let's kind of begin there. I think he's an elite talent on both ends. You can tell he's fully committed. He makes really big shots for him. And they have a top 10 offensive efficiency. I don't know how many times their offense doesn't look very good. At least it looks really good to me most times. But he is I think, their big shot maker that they want to get shots for when they need baskets. And he's proven that he's capable of doing that over and over.
Go up front to David.
Yeah, Chris, what is, I don't know if Barry Collier had ever spoken to you much about the origins of the Butler way and his ties to Dick Bennett. I mean, really, it sounds like sort of the foundations of both Butler and Virginia programs, are mirror images of each other.
Yeah, I'm pretty well versed in that, and there are certainly some ties with some of our core values. Barry's quick to give Dick Bennett a lot of credit for that, and my college coach, who's remain very close to, spent some time with Dick Bennett and quite a bit of time with Dick Bennett, and I think, Coach Bennett and the Bennett family are, if you're a coach, you really have a great appreciation for the way they do things, their brand, their style of play, and their recipe for success. So one of my very, very favorite coaching books of all time that I got was kind of a Season on the Brink book, similar to that, one of Dick Bennett's first couple years at Wisconsin, and it was given to me by my college coach and early in my coaching career. So it was great. Unfortunately, his son's pretty daggone good coach too.
Go way back over here.
Coach, last night you said that the players would sleep well, but the coaches wouldn't. How was that quick turnaround? And obviously you did some pre-scout, but when you got to face a team like Virginia with all that they do, how was last night? How long was the night?
Oh, man. Do I have bags under my eyes yet? Yeah, every coach is like that, right? Don't hear me say I'm complaining now. I'll lose sleep any chance I get as long as we can continue to advance. I mean, it's a great time, and you're going on adrenaline. I did wake up, went to bed at around midnight, woke up at about 2:30, just eyes wide open, thinking about Brogdon and Parentis and all the motion that we're going to have to guard. Had my laptop on my pulled my laptop out because I couldn't get to sleep, and I was watching a couple of their ACC tournament games, and my wife looked over and said, "What time is it?" 2:30. So we did that for a few hours. Our players fortunately got sleep. They're the ones that are going to have the hard work. But I think we're doing our very best to put a good game plan together for a terrific team.
Other questions for Coach? Can we get a mic up here, Max?
I guess it's Doug Dowdy from the Roanoke Times. I guess this qualifies as a maybe note more than the lead story, but your background in coaching in this state, this part of the country, could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure, love to. I was spent a few years in this state and spent some years as an assistant, associate head coach, and then spent 3 years as the head coach at the Gardner-Webb University in Boiling Springs, North Carolina. How many in here have been to Boiling Springs, North Carolina? Oh, wow, a lot more than I thought. That's 4. Excuse me? Yeah, that's why you've seen it. That would consider you've been there then, probably, as long as you've seen the egg. You've been close enough to touch it. I had a wonderful experience there, and as I've told people, David knows this, our beat writer, it was one of the hardest moves of my coaching career to leave a very secure coaching job and kids that young people that I loved. We had an excellent team coming back, and I just We had a great deal of success in turning it quickly in our 3 years, and then I came to Butler as an assistant. So I love this area, love this state, and they've got a great appreciation for college basketball. I've been fortunate. I grew up in Kentucky. I went to school in Indiana, and I coached in North Carolina. Those are 3 pretty good basketball states.
Go back on the edge to David.
David Teal with the Daily Press and Newport News, Virginia. Coach, you were fortunate enough to inherit, so to speak, a program with a terrific foundation and base, but how rewarding has it been to you to sustain that and to advance in these tournaments?
It's been really special, and it's something we want to continue to do. And as I've said over and over, I get a text from Coach Stevens every selection Sunday saying, don't ever take this for granted. And, I've really tried to heed that advice. And you're talking about a guy who went there quite a bit, came to this party quite a bit. So I think your players appreciate every moment. We're trying to appreciate every moment and play with a great sense of gratitude. And we know it's not a given. As I've told, we're 3 years removed from 4-14 in the Big East and a really struggled, a losing record and a difficult year. So I think because that has been so recent in our memory, you have an appreciation for how quickly things can turn the other way. So I'm so proud of this group and what they've been able to accomplish, and hopefully we can continue to do it.
Got Mike in the middle there.
Coach, you spoke about Malcolm and what he does for their offensive efficiency. I'm curious, and this might be too simple, but is it more important to take away Anthony Gill and some of that inside, or London Parentis and the three-point shooting? What do you think is more important to them getting going offensively?
I don't know if there is one. Their guard play can get him going, but Gill's a load inside. His motor is outstanding. He's not. All their bigs are good. Gill he just plays with a terrific motor, and he's tough, and he can score it. He can go get their misses as well. They've got good balance. Any elite offensive team's going to have great balance, and I think they have great balance. If they're not, if they're covered up on the perimeter, they're going to find a way to get Gill and Toby and those other guys the ball inside, and they're effective when they get it there.
Back up front to Doug.
I guess this is a no-brainer. You get it a lot, but just briefly, what has the Big East meant for your program?
Well, I think it's probably helped in every way. I think it was a terrific move for our university, and it was certainly a university decision. And as I've always said, it's really a credit to those student athletes that have, that made kind of Butler what Butler is today to put us in that position. Now we have some work to do to continue to compete at a high level. This 3-year transition, 3 leagues in a few years can be one that's challenging. We've got some work to do to continue to build really solid recruiting classes, because hey, listen, there's no question, it's a step up. The Big East is an elite league. I think it will always be a top 5 league in the country. It's been that way in our 3 years, and I think it's going to continue to be that.
Can we go back to David there?
Coach, I was just wondering, since you have the common opponents in Villanova and Miami, were you able to look at those tapes and glean something just because you had played those 2 teams?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. When you're scouting teams, you do try to look at those teams that may be most similar to you, that they're playing, similar in style, and so we've tried to look at those games that they have played against teams that would probably fit us the most. If a team's going to have their front line's going to be 6'9", 6'10", 6'10", that's not us. So some of those games were earlier, but we have peeked at them, but we spent more times on those games where we felt like they matched up against teams similar to us. Trying to think if I want to reveal that or not. Yep, Georgia Tech, Clemson. We'll have watched Villanova some, and a little bit of Miami, and then we peaked at obviously a few other games, but we've really focused on some of those.
Okay, if we can get Kip back behind you, and then we'll come back to David.
Yeah, Chris, Kip Coons for the Raleigh News and Observer. You mentioned who you were similar to on their schedule. Who are they similar to on your schedule?
Their numbers are most similar to Villanova, but they play a different style. But their numbers, in terms of their the complete, how complete they are as a team, and how sound they are offensively and defensively, is very similar to Villanova. Villanova is top 10 in efficiency in both offense and defense. So they would come to mind first. Although the styles are a little bit different. I think Tony has a real style and a brand that they play that is somewhat unique from a lot of other teams in the country.
Up front to David.
That was my question, so we can move on.
Okay. Well, we've got another question back here. Natalie, if you could take the mic back there, please.
Coach, I'm sure you heard what happened to Tony right before the first half yesterday. He was, I think, more embarrassed about it. But do you think, being around coaching long enough, the hours that you guys put in, the quick turnarounds, the pressure, is it a wonder that more coaches maybe don't have physical ailments or don't get under the weather or dehydrated more? Or do you guys, and do you hide it from us?
No, it's almost happened to me in a game. Yeah, last year I had to take a knee, and I think some of it's just kind of, most people, have you ever gotten up quickly, you kind of gotten lightheaded. First of all, I was concerned about him. I don't know Tony well, but when we were on the bus back, and one of my assistants said that. One of the guys on our staff, and you're obviously concerned, really concerned. So it's good to hear that he's doing well, and it may have just been a dehydration. I think the job is demanding. There's no question, and the challenge is to maintain some balance. I don't know that anybody has that mastered, but I think when I've been around Coach Bennett or talked to him a little bit, I think he's got a pretty good understanding. It seems like he's got a great work-life, family balance and a really good perspective. And that can be really hard to do. Listen, we've been on the bubble, I think, since, December, it seems like. So that can wear coaches out. And I think one of the things that's helped our group this year is we had some very difficult things happen inside our program with 2 deaths that were just so tragic. And I think I can remember going back into our offices when we were going through, when Andrew Smith was maybe weeks away from passing away, and then also dealing with the young man on our staff whose young son, infant son, had a terminal illness. And I remember our staff saying to each other, we had a game coming up. Wow, we don't even want to think about the game right now. What matters is our guys and them processing this in the right way, and us being as supportive as we can to those that are going through this. So I think that has helped our entire team have some perspective, and there's no question it's helped me have some perspective in the midst of all this.
Any other questions? All right, Coach, thank you very much.
Okay.
Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
The UVA student athletes should be here at 2:20. Just so you know, the student athletes who are going to be here for UVA, Brogdon, Gill, and Toby. Are they coming straight here?
No, they go at 2:20. Did you want me to go ahead and bring them? Or you can let them go ahead and drop their stuff off in the locker room first?
Yeah, that's fine. Nobody's going to keel over if they're too close.
I didn't think so. I just wanted to check.
I'm sorry, what now? They just came in. They're dropping their stuff off at their locker room. They're coming here. I mean, we're expecting to start at 2:20. Yeah, if they're, you know, we try. Let's put it that way. How are you this morning or afternoon? I guess we're afternoon now, aren't we? This is like being in a casino. It's just like Vegas. You're just there. You know, there's no clock. We are now ready to begin the Virginia press conference. We'll start with the student athletes. Once again, if you have a question, please raise your hand. Wait until you have the microphone. We'll get it there as soon as we can. Davis, can we get one to Mike here in the middle? Mike, could you raise your hand for Davis?
Mike Barber, Richmond Times-Dispatch. Malcolm, I'm curious if you think one thing is more important than the other in terms of, does it help you guys more to get inside scoring or to get more of that three-point shooting that kind of got you going in the last game? Is one or the other more important to your offense?
I think it depends on the game, but most of the time it's more important to get these big guys going first because they ultimately, at the end of the day, they touch the ball less than the guards do. So if we can get them going, if we can get their motors up, they start rebounding well, they start hedging well on ball screens, and they overall can have a way bigger impact on the game. So really getting them going, and then threes will come as the game goes on.
You got a follow-up? Go ahead.
For Anthony and Mike, you heard what Malcolm said. Is it important as big guys to kind of get in a rhythm early? Is it harder if you get your touches later and all of a sudden they need buckets from you?
Mike, could you go first with that, please?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just important to establish an inside presence early into a game. I think that really kind of helped us open up in the outside yesterday. So I think going forward, being able to really get contributions from both inside and outside is definitely a big key for us.
Anthony, could you comment?
I would have to second what Malcolm said. You know, we don't touch the ball as much as the guards do. So when we are able to get the ball earlier in the game and kind of get a rhythm going that way, it makes it a lot easier for us to feel like we're doing something in the game.
Okay, let's go up front to David.
Yes, for any of the players, I believe you had some principles of the Virginia program, the names sewn into your collar recently. I was just kind of wondering if you could elaborate on what Coach Bennett, emphasizes that, and if that's been a real foundational part of Virginia's program.
Malcolm, could you answer that?
Absolutely. These are the 5 pillars that his dad, Tony Bennett Sr., actually came up with at Wisconsin. It's traveled, and it really does serve as the foundation of our program. At the beginning of the year, maybe the first 5 practices, Coach Bennett breaks down one pillar at a time. Those 5 pillars really is what carry us through the season. We can rely on those. We can look to those, for strength and for guidance throughout the season on what we need to, be better at and what we need to accomplish going forward.
Okay, we're going to go to Doug up front, and Davis, can you get to Aaron right back there?
Doug Dowdy from the Roanoke Times. Anthony, is there a basketball watching junkie on the team? Is there, for instance, would there anybody on the team who knows the history of Butler and how well they've done in past NCAA tournaments?
I'm not sure if there's someone who would know exactly what Butler has done in the past or, all the stats that they have. But, a lot of guys on the team do watch basketball a lot. Malcolm, I know he watches basketball every day. That's just something that he does when he has free time. But I'm not sure if anybody can actually point out one specific thing that Butler's done in the past.
Aaron, he's got a microphone right back behind there.
Aaron McFarling with the Roanoke Times. Malcolm, Hampton was not a really big three-point shooting team. This team, obviously, it's one of the best things they do. What are the keys to defending that, and how much different is this game than what you just experienced?
Going into this game, we know they're an excellent three-point shooting team, but at the same time, we're an excellent defensive team. So the challenge is going to be making all their threes contested. They're honestly going to knock down some threes. We just don't want them to shoot a high percentage. We don't want the three ball to be able to carry them throughout the game. Just make every three uncomfortable and try to challenge as many as we can.
We can go right up front here to Whitey.
Hey, Malcolm, your matchup with Roosevelt Jones seems like it'll be a pretty important one. What do you kind of make of his game? He's got kind of a quirky game offensively, and what have you kind of seen of him on video?
People say he's quirky, people say he's unorthodox, but at the end of the day, he's effective. So it's about staying in front of him, making sure his crafty shots are challenged, are a little bit uncomfortable, and that you're physical with him. He's a physical big guard, so you got to deliver some of that physicality back to him. That's really the matchup for whoever's guarding him tomorrow.
Okay, we're going way up on the side over here.
So if two of you guys want to answer it, all three of you don't have to, but we know what it's like for coaches in between games, a lot of film study, a lot of breakdown. What is it like for the players in these tournament games? A lot of hotel time? I mean, what do you guys do in between?
Anthony, could you answer that?
Last night we got in and we watched film last night on Butler once we found out. Well, actually, they played before us, so we knew we were going to play them going into it. So we watched film on them and kind of rested the rest of the night. Then this morning we woke up, got breakfast in us, and then we walked through some of their actions in the hotel. No basketball or anything like that, no basketball hoop or anything like that, just to try to get a feel of what they do and try to make it a lot easier for us to go over it today in practice.
Mike, is there anything you can add?
No.
Okay, let's go here on the edge then.
Anthony, Butler's coach said watching film that you have a high motor, and we've heard other coaches describe you that way too. Is there anything in your background or a coach somewhere along the way that kind of helped you become that type of player, or is it something you always kind of had a knack for?
I think one time when I was younger, somebody told me I didn't have a motor at all, and then I didn't really understand what that meant. Then they explained it to me, and then ever since that day, I kind of wanted to prove them wrong and try to give the best I could every game and try to help out my team as much as I could. So yeah, I do pride myself on playing hard at every possession and trying to go out there and give the best for my team.
Okay, go back to Mike there. Right.
To follow, I think, who was that who accused you of not having a motor? What was the setting? Can you tell us a little more about that?
I don't want to call anybody's name out, but it was one of my coaches growing up, and he really meant a lot to me. And one day in practice that he said I didn't have a motor, I really took it to heart, and I really didn't want to be that guy who wasn't giving it all every possession.
Other questions for the student athletes? All right, gentlemen, you're excused. Thank you very much, and good luck tomorrow. Let's see. 2:40, so 13 minutes. What's your name? Connor? Are you going to be a Mike guy at all? Oh, you need to file a protest with that. I don't get involved in that. I just show up. We are now ready to move forward with the Virginia press conference. At this time, we will have head coach Tony Bennett. He's going to skip his opening statement, and we'll just go straight to questions. Again, if you have a question, please raise your hand. Davis, why don't we go up front to Doug here, and we'll get started.
Tony, after the Wake game, you brought up your 30-footer against Butler. Could you talk about your memories of Butler over the years?
Yeah, tremendous respect. Coach Collier, well, Barry Collier, who's the AD now, I can remember, I think the year was 96 or 97, where he came and visited my father at the house, and they just exchanged basketball ideas, and they talked about actually the pillars of the program that my dad kind of had established when he was at Wisconsin Green Bay and Wisconsin, our 5 biblical pillars of humility, passion, unity, servanthood, and thankfulness, and kind of adopted those pillars, and they've used them. I think Coach Stevens, Brad Stevens, is obviously one of the best. They've used those, and certainly that program is a model for so many programs, the respect, how they've played, what they've accomplished in postseason, and just getting to play against, and that was the first game I ever played as a player on, I think, it was on national TV on ESPN. We played Butler, and we're fortunate enough to beat them on a last-second 3. Getting to play in Hinkle Fieldhouse was special. I was obviously watching the movie Hoosiers, all those kinds of things. So terrific. And then you look at what this team has done this year, how well they play, and the best compliment I can give them is you watch Butler, and I said it yesterday, they don't beat themselves. Well coached, of course, experienced team. It seems like that's all we've been playing these last few games, but again, have the utmost respect for what their program stands for, how they've done it, and I know the character of that program and a lot of the things we share. I think some things that are common.
Okay, Davis, can you give your mic to David? And Eric, can you get the other David Teal back on the edge here?
Yeah, I was going to segue off that too. It really seems like quite the coincidence that your dad had profoundly influenced both your coaching career and certainly the Butler program. I mean, when Butler plays Virginia, or are the two teams almost Virginia playing Virginia, Butler playing Butler? It seems like at least in foundational things that the programs are the same.
Yeah, I think certainly there's some similarities in those areas, but obviously some differences. I think their guards are bigger than ours. We haven't gone against too many guards. They have huge guards. That's just the way they play and how effective they are. But I think we try to be a team that plays real sound and real tough basketball. And again, they'll probably run more sets than us. We run a little bit more of our motion at times, but we try to make the game as simple as it can be in terms of get good shots offensively and make the other team work to get contested shots. And the way we go about it is similar in some ways defensively, and then there's little differences. But absolutely, I think we try to recruit the same kind of character guys, and I know they're making a difference. I don't know Coach real well, but I kind of like what I see as far as watching his team play, how he coaches, and respect what he's done in the situation he's been in. But I know they're about character too. So, yes.
It's just one follow-up. How did you guys snare Kyle Guy? That guy's a pretty good player.
Yeah, no, we're fortunate to have Kyle. I think we got on him early, and I think some of the success that we had, it's him watching us in the ACC really helped, and we're excited certainly to have Kyle. He's and I know we fought Butler for him and some other really good programs in Indiana, so thankful that we got Kyle coming.
Let's go to David on the edge here.
Tony, you referenced their backcourt size, specifically Roosevelt Jones. What type of challenges does he present? And yesterday you compared Chivas to Blossingame. Is there anyone that you've played this season to whom you could compare Jones?
I mean, he's really like a power point guard. He's kind of unique. I think he might lead them in rebounding. Both of their perimeter guys do. Gets on the glass, but gets in the lane, makes good decisions, knows who he is. Again, as a coach, we have to talk about, do you know who you are as a team? But as a player, he really does. We've played against some big guards, but he's kind of unique, and I think he's one of their keys. They have so many, but you have to do a good job on him, and he's got a lot of experience as well. But You tell me. I'm trying to go through the guys in the ACC. I can't think of any. So.
Okay, let's just go back here, and then we'll get Mike.
Coach, Coach Holtman said that he didn't get much sleep last night preparing for you guys. How is it vice versa for you guys? How much time did you spend in on this quick turnaround? Obviously, probably did some pre-scout, but
Yeah.
what's the turnaround period like? How much sleep do you get?
Yeah.
Especially after yesterday with what you were dealing with.
Yeah. No, you watch a lot of film. I mean, like you said, you do the pre-scout stuff. You watch film, and that's why you also have to rely on your principles as a program. The things you do that you've worked on, that you've trained over the course of the season. You're not going to all of a sudden do something completely different. So you have to rely on those, but prepare well with your staff, and then prepare well in your practice. You have an hour or hour and a half out there. You'll have a shoot around tomorrow to be as ready as you can. And playing in the conference tournament, we had to do that 3 days in a row in the ACC, and that it's a challenge, but you work to prepare for things like that. But yeah, no, watching them, absolutely, you're like, boy, you got to deal with this, the size, the way they run their offense, how sound they are defensively. You're always thinking about that. I think as coaches, you sit in those rooms, and I think if your players could hear your conversations as coaches, going, what are we going to do here? They might say, geez, I don't know. You're always trying to figure stuff out. But when it comes to getting ready to prepare for it, you do what you do best, and you have a couple approaches, and then you gotta execute.
Let's stay back over there with Mike.
Anthony Gill told us a story that a coach, when he was younger, accused him of having no motor, and that kind of motivated him. Did you know that story, and how would you describe Anthony's motor at this point?
Yeah, no, I didn't know that story, so I'm glad it wasn't me, so I didn't say that. But he's really when he got here, I think that's the way he's played on the offensive glass. He's I've said you're like a warrior on the offensive glass. You go to the glass, you play hard, and then we talked about, all right, let's find areas to use that aggressiveness and apply it to your defense. And I think he's worked to become, more aggressive defensively and be continuous, but hard playing, tough-minded, but yet has you guys have been around him. I think he has the right perspective on things and enjoys it. But that's key for us. His ability, I think, in a game like this, it's those X-factor things, guys who can get the loose balls, get on the glass, get some offensive rebounds, make some of those plays, and he's done that for us. And, he was really good yesterday. He took advantage of, some of the mismatches that were there and did a terrific job.
Okay, we'll go up front to Doug. Eric, could you go way in the back there to the gentleman?
You shared some of your interesting or humorous anecdotes from your dad over the years. Did you talk to him after yesterday's game about your experience and also about playing Butler?
Yeah, I just talked to him for a brief minute. My mom was grabbing the phone from him saying, I want to talk to me. But he actually, I've been his assistant, and I've seen him jump up quick and all of a sudden have to put his hand on the floor and, get the almost pass out. So I've seen that happen to him before, so we kind of were chuckling about that. But we didn't talk too much about the game. He was just, I'm doing fine. No, we didn't talk too much about, I mean, I know he certainly has respect, and I'll probably try to give him a call tonight or visit with him tomorrow. But he's, like I said, he doesn't watch many of the games, that, but he always gives me a good piece of advice and wisdom for sure.
Going all the way in the back.
Tony, Eric Brady from USA Today. Players never forget their last-second game winners. Can you take us through that shot at Butler, and was it the shot of your life?
Yeah, it was just I can't remember what the score was, but I think the score was tied, and I just was coming down. I remember looking at my dad. I think we had a timeout, and Thad Matta always, every time I see him, he always recounts the story to me. My dad just kind of looked at me and went, go ahead, like, it's on you. So I just dribbled down, and I think I surprised the guy guarding me. I shot it from about 25 or 26 feet. I didn't think he thought I was going to shoot it, and I made it with a couple seconds left. So it was exciting because, again, it was our first game on ESPN. And, it was just, I remember looking at my dad like, you want me to call timeout? And he just gave me like, go ahead, son, let it go. So it was a good memory for sure. But shot of my life, I don't know. I'm trying to think. I've had a few game winners, but that one probably stands out for sure in college.
Davis, can you get a microphone to Kip there on the edge? And Eric, we've got two over here we need to get.
Yeah, Tony, Kip Coons for the Raleigh News and Observer. I'm over here.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Early in the season, it was a priority to replace Darian Atkins' defensive role. What strides have you made where it's clear that you have? Because clearly your defense is better now than it was 2 months ago.
Yeah, I think we had two guys in Justin Anderson and Darian Atkins who were erasers. They could cover a mistake that was made, whether they had a mistake or one of our players did, and block a shot or chase a guy down in transition, the way Darian could blow up ball screens. So I think Isaiah Wilkins has given us a great lift. I think the guys have gotten better positionally and collectively. Anthony Gill, Mike Tobey, Evan Nolte I've been using as the foursome, and we probably don't have as much of that ability, but I think we've just tried to, as we say, tighten it up a little bit. And at times, I think we have improved, and you got to keep working. And again, a team like Butler will test you to see how good you really are, because you know, Darian could almost be in two places at once. You know, you're talking about him specifically, and you need that kind of anticipation against teams that run multiple actions, multiple screens, move the ball, and can score inside and out.
Okay, now we're going to come over, all right, Coach.
Tony, I know it would have been disappointing for you if Evan and Mike had kind of fizzled out at the end of their careers. What does it mean for you as their coach to see them both playing well on this stage at what could be the final games of their careers?
Right. No, real important. They've given so much to the program, and you know, we talk about Malcolm and Anthony a lot, but Evan, you know, and Mike have both had significant impacts, and they're the reason why our program is where it is. I can't tell you how happy I was. We all talked about it, to see Mike have that kind of game in his last game at John Paul Jones Arena, and he's just stayed faithful to it. Evan too. Evan sometimes wasn't playing, but we're about the team and about, to me, being a servant. Those pillars about being really about unity and servanthood, and say, what can I do to help the team? And of course it's frustrating when you're not individually getting, as a last year player, your senior year, the things you want, but they stayed true, and their time has come around, and you can just see it in their eyes. And that's why, as coaches, when you see that, when they have individual success, that brings me about as much joy as anything. So to see those guys do that, you know, Evan 2 years ago against Coastal Carolina, without him, we probably would have gotten beat, and he really saved us in that first round game or second round game. And so he, you know, but he's had moments this year for sure, and they've stayed patient, and they're really Malcolm Brogdon, all these guys. It's not instant gratification. They've stayed patient. They've stayed patient, and they're enjoying it, and I think they're going to get a lot out of it.
Okay, I'm going to move up one row here to Abe, and then we got to get Abe up front.
Hey, Tony. I'm Zach Helfand from the Los Angeles Times. It's fairly unusual to have a California guy playing at Virginia. How did you discover London Parentes, and what has he meant to the program?
Yeah, well, I coached at Washington State when I was in the Pac-10 at the time. And and we had a recruit all over at Washington State internationally. And so having coached at Wisconsin as an assistant, been all over, we knew that we just got to find the best players. I really thought Virginia could draw nationally or internationally because of the ACC. You know, maybe not where our program was at the time, but the ACC would draw, and then what the academic experience could do for them. And, you know, London just... Sometimes you just watch guys, and you know, you hear coaches say they have the it factor. I referred to him as a neck-up player, I think, yesterday. Well, he has that. He has a composure. He has an understanding of the game, a feel for it that I think is real important. And when I was at Washington State, we brought a young man named Taylor Richesti into our program, who was a terrific guard. He had it, and that really just brought everything together, and then our program went to another level. And I think our program has, when we've really had a guy like London who's kind of tied it all together, and he's become more aggressive this year, that's helped us take that next step with the talented guys in place.
There was a Washington State kicker involved in giving you a tip
yes.
on London.
Nico, he just told us, hey, I watched your teams. There's a scouting service. There's a couple people. A lot of people will take credit for it, but the punter or the kicker there said, I watched you guys play a lot and over my years, and he said, this guy fits what you guys do. And one of my best friends was an assistant at Washington State at the time, and we were both fighting for him because we knew the kind of player that we thought could really help our programs.
Okay, we're coming up front to Ava.
Ava Wallace from the Washington Post. We saw Mariel have another big game last night, and he's kind of done that a couple times over the season. But did you guys know he was going to be that big player off the bench for you at the beginning of the season, or how have you seen him develop? What's maybe the biggest leap he's taken? And then you always talk about depth, but how extra important is that in the tournament?
I think Mariel, in his first year he'd show flashes, and then this year, a little bit up and down, but I thought he had a really nice, he and Devin both, but they showed great flashes and had a nice ACC conference tournament. And, Mariel he's hungry to defend, so he gives you that size and athleticism to really play hard defensively on their good perimeter players, so that's huge for us. And then he has the ability, and he's improving it, getting into the lane, making some plays, and knocking down some threes when they're there. So he's in his second year, so he's just gotten better and better as the season has progressed, and I think that's really good for his future for us. But with his size and length, you need, playing against Butler and the teams you play, you need size on the perimeter in our system and how we play. So that ability, and he really plays hard. He and Isaiah are, they're wired. They really want to defend. You can see that. And so that really, I think, helps us. And then he gives you a little bit of a different dimension offensively. The way he's been getting to the lane and then knocking down some shots to balance it off has helped us.
Okay, Coach, we're going to go to this edge here, and we just got 1, 2, 3 guys.
Tony, the third straight year in the round of 32, how much different are things for you guys as a program and how you go about things at this stage now as opposed to a couple years ago? And how much of that do you think kind of reflects the growth of the program in that span?
I think the experience is important, but I don't know if you change how you go about it. You realize that I think you realize you're more aware that you've got to play at a high level. There's nothing guaranteed, especially in college basketball this year. You're going to have to show up and play well. I think our guys have a belief if we play well, we'll have a chance to advance, but they truly understand if we don't, we won't. And I think that, last year against Michigan State, they outplayed us. We didn't advance. The year before, we played well against Memphis, and we did advance, and I think just that knowledge and knowing that, and I think our guys have done a lot in their 4-year career, especially this group of seniors, and that, I said that before, that won't be taken away, but the piece to try to advance as far as they can in the NCAA tournament would be a great way for them to finish their careers, and that's exciting, and then there's always a chance that it doesn't happen, but I think that there's a hunger for that, and I believe they're focused for it, and I know that would be a great way for them to go out.
We're going to stay on that edge with David.
Tony, you mentioned Evan. Since the Louisville game at JPJ, it seems every shot he takes, it looks like it's going in. He seems to have rediscovered a confidence about him. What triggered it? Was it just getting the ankle better, or?
Yeah, I mean, he's gotten probably a little more consistent time, and sometimes just, you make a couple and then the rim looks a little bigger, and that helps us. That stretches our defense, gives us a different dimension, but that's been significant. And yeah, in the Louisville game, I think he started hitting the first couple of threes, and he's done that at different times in his career, but it's nice to see that and know that he's a threat, and I think the other team has to, account for that.
One more on the edge, and this will be the last question.
Tony, talking to a couple of the players, they said they get this sense sometimes in games, usually in the second half when they've worn down the opponent. What is it about the Virginia system that does that to teams?
I think every team fights for that. I really do. You're playing against a team. You're trying to make it hard on them to get the good shots, as I said, and you're working to get your shots. And it's just a battle of attrition. Who's going to impose whose will on one another. And there's points at times when you sense, okay, we're at that point, and you can just feel it. And that's, as a coach, one of the better feelings you can get. And the better competition you play, the harder that is. But I just think it's trained through practice. It's through experiencing it as players and knowing that it's been validated with these guys. Hey, if we work hard defensively and not give up easy stuff, and then we work to get good looks and have a tough mindset and try not to lose or beat ourselves, as I mentioned, that can have a wearing effect on the opponent, and that's how we've chosen to play, and that's been our best way to succeed. So it's not an easy way. It's a hard way. But it's the best way for us, and that's my job, is to figure out what's the best way for us to be successful.
Okay, I'm afraid that's all the time we have, Coach. Thank you very much, and good luck tomorrow. The North Carolina student athletes are scheduled to be here at 3:10. don't suppose either of you have heard from Mr. Kirshner about the Carolina players? Thank you. Don't know yet. Their practice ends in about a minute, and when they walk out, they'll. Yeah, I'll know hopefully in like 2 minutes here. Would you like me to get fresh ice for you? I apologize. Well, you want me to bring my Yeti cooler from home? They're a great gift. Oh, yeah. That weigh like 500 pounds? Hold on one second. Yes, sir. Paige and Barry. Thank you. All right. All right. Who is asking who Carolina was bringing? It's Paige and Barry. Everybody else is in the locker room, so. seems so happy to be here. This is great. We are now ready to begin the North Carolina press conference. We're going to start with the student athletes. I have been asked to warn you. Mr. Page is going to be available here during this segment. He will not be available in the locker room. He's got another obligation he needs to attend to. So this is where you can get Mr. Page. If you have a question at this point, please raise your hand. Wait until we get you a microphone, and then we'll get going here. So anyone have a question for the student athletes?
This question's from Marcus. Marcus, you played a little bit. I know you have a familiarity with Chris Dunn. I'm curious as to what your relationship is with him and what anything at all you remember of his game from playing with him in AAU circles.
Yeah, I guess it's been 4 whole years now since I played against him. We don't really have like a relationship, but we played against each other in the McDonald's All-American practices, which are really competitive, in a bunch of different camps and on the circuit. So I'm familiar. He's an explosive point guard. What really sticks out to me is his defense and his length. You know, he's got really long arms, and he uses his quickness to get a lot of steals. So he's going to be a problem for us, but we're going to throw different guys at him and try to contain him and keep him out of the lane.
We're staying on this side over here.
Marcus, I'm curious what you remember about 2 years ago playing against Providence. You were probably the star of the game. You know, hit a lot of really big shots at the end. Do you take anything from that, or is it just so far away?
Yeah, you can. I definitely remember. I think the star of the game, his name was Bryce Cotton. But, I played pretty well, too. But just getting a sense of how they play and their style and, you know, how they're going to try to attack us is pretty similar to that. But our team's obviously changed. You know, Joel in his class wasn't playing in that game. So you can look back for some similarities, but this group is a lot different than that group.
Other questions for student athletes? Madison, can we go right back there? And then we'll go up front.
This is for Joel. You and Marcus are both kind of on the smaller side of the point guard scale or the two-guard scale. Chris Dunn is a little bit larger. What are the challenges in trying to guard a larger guy that can kind of post you up if you have to?
Yeah, he'll try to post us up since we're smaller than him, and then also, I guess it's just like going up against someone else. But he could probably shoot over us. But you know, we're gonna try our best to try to stay in front of him, and if he tries to post us up, try to get in front and try to help our big guys, or let our big guys help us over the top.
Going up front here.
Marcus, you know, Chris came back for his senior year, and you're a senior. Can you talk about what guys miss out on their senior year that leave for the NBA for whatever reason, what they're missing out on?
Yeah, I think it's different for everyone. I didn't want to miss out on a chance to play on a team that I've had a chance to play on so far this year, one that's capable of making a deep run, and missing out on this. You know, this is what we play for. This is what we come back to school for. You know, missing out on getting a degree and finishing your education. But, you know, different guys are in different situations. A lot of time, you know, the money and playing at the next level is hard to turn down. But I don't think anything beats these 4 years. You know, you only get 4, so you might as well use them.
Going over here on this edge.
Joe Kayada from NBC 10 in Providence. For both of you guys, can you talk about playing here and what it means to have your hometown fans? It's kind of like a home game for you guys taking on Providence.
Joel, could you answer that?
Yeah, it means a lot. Just having our home crowd here, you know, that gives us a little boost out on the court. I know in the second half yesterday, once we got it going, they were behind us and it helped us a lot. And that's a big thing for us.
Marcus, could you comment on that?
Yeah, I agree. You know, in a neutral site game, to have the crowd be heavily tilted in your favor kind of turns it into almost like a home game for us. So it's good to have our Carolina faithful behind us, and hopefully we give them something to cheer about like we did in the second half as opposed to the first half last game. But it can provide you a spark. You know, if you make a great play and the crowd gets into it, it's easier to increase your level of play.
Stay over there.
Brett Friedlander, Wilmington Star News. This is from Mr. Page. When Bryce starts kind of getting emotional the way he did last night, what does that do for the rest of the team? Do you kind of feed off of that, or you just kind of look at him and say, that's just Bryce?
I think the answer to that is yes on both fronts. We know that's just Bryce, but also when he's making tremendous plays like that and screaming and yelling and jumping up and down and getting the crowd into it, you know, we feed off that too. You know, it's hard not to. When he's showing that much energy and excitement as our best player, then everybody kind of follows behind and starts playing better.
Okay, now we're going to go to the aisle.
Joel, your role has increased a lot on this team coming from last year to this year. How much do you think learning from guys like Marcus last year has helped you moving forward towards this year?
Yeah, you know, coming in, being a point guard, you know, it's the hardest position to transition from high school to college. And Marcus, when I came in, Marcus told me that Coach Rob was going to be in my ear all the time on the sideline. And, you know, that definitely happened. And then Marcus just helped me out, with different situations and telling me, what it takes to be a point guard here. And it helped me out a lot. And then this year, I just think I'm playing with a little bit more confidence than I was last year. Worked on my game a lot over the summer, so I just think it was like a confidence level and then also just being comfortable within our system.
Okay, we're coming back on this edge.
Following up on that, Joel, not that you wanted Marcus to miss 6 games at the beginning of the season, but how much did that help you, knowing that you had to be the man and he wasn't there to kind of lean on for that first few games of the season?
Yeah, that helped us a lot. As a team, it just helped, playing without one of our key players, and other guys had to step up and step into different roles. And I think that's why Nate and Theo are giving us good minutes off the bench, because they had to step up when he was out. And then also, just me, like I said, with my confidence level, with Marcus sitting out, it just helped me a lot, just being on the ball and being able to make plays and just knowing that I can do that.
Do we have any other questions? All right, gentlemen, you're excused. Thank you very much. Good luck tomorrow. Coach Williams is due here at 3:30. We're now ready to begin Coach Williams' press conference. Coach, could you please make an opening statement for us?
Well, as every coach has probably said, we're thrilled to be here, thrilled to still be talking to you guys, and it means we played well enough to get by yesterday. The first part of the game, we didn't play very well at all. This first part of the second half, we played exceptionally well, and that was enough to give us a margin that we were able to hold out throughout the entire game. I thought Bryce was sensational with his shot blocking and defending the rim so many times. One of them could have possibly been goaltended, but the other 7 blocks were just all really big-time blocks. So for me, it was a little bit of our team finally getting really enthused and playing some defense and challenging and attacking on offense for probably, 6, 8, 10 minutes early in the second half, and that was the course of the game.
Okay, Coach, we're going to start down here on our right.
Hey, Roy. Mark Cannizzaro from the New York Post. Can you talk a little bit about Chris Dunn from Providence made a decision to come back and keep playing his college career. How much of it, can you appreciate the pull there for the elite athlete like that who has a chance and just kind of the dynamic there? Because, I mean, every one of you coaches deals with that every day at this level.
Yeah, Mark, it's a hard decision. A kid's got to go with his heart, what he thinks is right. Everybody acts like that. I try to keep guys around, but since 2004, we've had more guys leave, go early than anybody else in the ACC, more than Duke, more than Louisville, more than everybody. And but every one of them has to be an individual decision. Chris really had a tough decision because he could have gone last year and would have been a first-round pick. I don't think it's hurt him. He's enjoyed his life. He made the decision for what he wanted to do, and that's the way I think it should be done. Bryce, we didn't have people saying he's going to be a number 1 pick, and it's really helped him now. I think he's really going to be a very good number 1 pick. But there's no perfect rule. I don't think that anybody would say that LeBron or Kobe or those guys made bad decisions. But you have to really look at it on an individual basis and see what you really want. Tyler Hansbrough loved college basketball. He was first-team All-American after his freshman year and could have gone, and he stayed all 4 years because he loved college basketball. Loved what he was doing and would trade it in right now except for payday. And so there's no perfect rule, but I think Chris really helped himself because it made him feel good and did what he wanted to do. Bryce really helped himself in the extent that he didn't have that many options last year, and he has several options to say the least. But, the NBA's, we can't compete with the NBA. You can't compete with that dollar. But at the same time, both of them can be great experiences if you really do what you can do out of both of them. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to get Kip, and then we'll come here.
Hi, Roy. Kip Coons for the Raleigh News and Observer. We asked Marcus this before about Bryce. When he has a big moment, he is not reluctant at all to let everybody in the arena know. He'll yell, and it's clearly pure joy on his part. As kind of an old-school coach, though, did it ever bother you that he would do that, or do you just say, let the kids be the kids?
Kip, a little bit of both. Jock Vaughn, who was an NBA coach last year, was academic All-American of the Year for me at Kansas, one of the greatest leaders I've ever had. I just told him, don't try to show that enthusiasm and make it appear that you're showing up some individual on the other team, because I never wanted it to be that. And I don't think Bryce has ever done that. Bryce it's joy, it's exhilaration, it's passion. I've gotten really mad at him a couple times because he's doing all that posing and growling and all this kind of stuff when I want him to run back on defense. But there's no doubt in my mind that it's not a harmful intent. It's who Bryce is. I am old school. So if he doesn't run back on defense, I've taken him out before in games because he's growling and roaring and all that kind of stuff. Deep down in my soul, the old school philosophy wants him to do that same kind of thing when he gets beaten. The guy dunks it on his head. I want him to scream and do all that. So draw that attention to himself then. But nobody's ever going to do that. But I live with it. It's not a bad thing. I don't think he's trying to put anybody down. As long as he gets back on defense quickly enough, I'm okay with it.
Going right up front here, Coach.
Roy, Marcus Page has represented your program so well for so long, academic All-American, Arthur Ashe Award. I just wonder, where do you think Dean Smith would rank him among his favorite players?
Well, Coach said this many times, and it's the first one I stole it from. And, players are like your children. You don't have a favorite child, and that players are like that. You don't have a favorite player. Marcus has certainly set a standard that's hard for anybody else to match during his 4 years. And as coaches, we're very appreciative of that. I use this same guy again with Tyler Hansbrough. I told our staff every day the last 2 years, let's be thankful that we're able to coach a guy like that. And that was for his toughness, for his focus, for his basketball ability, and the kind of person he was. Now when you're talking to Marcus, I've said it last year and this year, let's be thankful that we're fortunate enough to coach a young man like that, for his basketball and all those kind of things, but for his academics, for his work in the community, is the example that he sets for our university. He's been an exemplary player, student athlete. There's some guys that I feel like I need to be paid to coach, and for Marcus, I need to back up to the pay window because I would coach him for nothing. And and I think most of the coaches, especially the older coaches, I think I got into it because I wanted to be like my high school coach. He gave me confidence and was the first person to make me feel like I could do something. Fist pump. He presents some closely. Do a good job on both those guys and see if we can try to cut down their percentage. Ask Eddie about the yoga class. Yourself up for kind of stuff. If you do that, you're going to be at home.
Mark Armstrong with ABC 11. Were you at all surprised when they announced the game times last night for you guys?
Surprised and very disappointed. I mean, Jiminy Christmas, you know. What can you say? 9:45, 9:50 for a start time. Don't we have a East, South, Midwest, West? Don't we have some games out there that we can show on TV at that time? But, you know, it's like spitting in the wind. It's stupid because you can't do anything about it, but I despise it. I got to sit in the daggum hotel room. I'll wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, don't even get to go to work to frickin' 9:30 at night. Is that pretty clear, Mark? Okay. I haven't been calling any old guys any names. I said yesterday, called 3 old guys a name and said, don't anybody need to print that? And I got a smart aleck text from my wife. She had watched it on TV, said it doesn't have to be printed. So I'm trying to watch what I'm saying.
Okay, we're in the middle here, Coach.
Coach Kevin McNamara from the Providence Journal. I don't like the game time either. It's not good for my deadline.
That's right.
I understand that you had some vertigo issues, and Coach Cooley called you on that as well. Can you just address, is it a common thing in your business? Obviously, Coach Bennett had some trouble yesterday as well.
Yeah, I think Tony's was a different thing. We pulled in yesterday, and I saw Tony walking around and had to get on his bus, and I got off the bus and went over to talk to him. I think his was a little different. I have that, too, a sudden jump up, a sudden blood rush for 2 or 3 seconds. You know, everything's just black, and I'm trying to find the floor or a coach's shoulder or a chair or a scores table. But that's like 5 to 10 seconds is all it is. Now it's pretty, you know, it's pretty dramatic for those 5 or 10 seconds, but then I'm okay. The vertigo, mine is called benign positional vertigo, and that's more of the line what Ed had, you know, because then your whole world is spinning and the intense thing doesn't last real long, but I usually end up throwing up a couple of times, and that's what happened to me at Boston College this year. But I did talk with Eddie and had my secretary talk to him, and then I sent him a note about what kind of medication that I use. I've had it for I think it's 19 or 20 years, something like that, and probably 15, 16, 17 times during that time period. It's pretty dramatic right at the start, but after 30 minutes, I'm better, and after 4 hours, I'm a lot better. Now, Eddie's hung around for 3 or 4 days, and I had shoulder surgery, and my arm was in a sling, and I couldn't play golf for 5 months. I'd rather have that than 1 episode of vertigo.
Okay, we're going to get Aaron, then we're going to go way in the back, and then OU, and hopefully Jeff will have time.
Coach, you were talking about with Bentel and Dunn, you got 2 guys that can really put up points. Is there anything different when you're playing an offense that has 2 guys that can score the ball, like number 1 options, as opposed to a team that has 1, a 2, or 3, and more balance? You
know, we've played against some teams. I mean, Duke's got with, you know, Grayson and Brandon, you know, he had to do a good job with them. Marshall was going to be 9 out of 10 on, you know, the 3-footers, which hopefully he didn't give it to him. But this is a pretty high-level player. I mean, these guys can play in the NBA for a long time whenever they choose to do that. But same kind of thing. You got to try to guard them and hope that they don't shoot a real high percentage, you know, or get 40 or something crazy like that. But you can't just focus on them because those other 3 guys, you know, shoot threes and do some effective things as well. Who was it I was watching? The Providence guys. Was it Villanova? In the tournament where both of them had 4 points at halftime, you know, and they were right there against a very good Villanova team, but Villanova did a great job on those 2. But you do have to guard everybody.
RoyalSportsFan.com. Kennedy and Bryce, as much as any other player, are 2 guys who you consistently talk about needing to get their intensity up. Given what they're going to be dealing with in the matchup and the way that Providence's bigs play. Is this as good a test as any for the two of them in terms of how they'll stay with the guys they've got to guard defensively?
Well, there's no question they're the two that I've pushed harder all year long to get their intensity level up at a high level and try to be more consistent with it. And Providence is the kind of team that can make you step up or get out of the way. And so we've got to do that. I think our guys I think Kennedy will play a lot better. I really do. Bryce is playing at a pretty high level. I want him to continue doing that, but I don't want everybody to get caught up in just those who it's North Carolina against Providence. And somebody said, well, Providence was 6-6 their last 12 games. Those games don't mean anything now. We're playing a very good basketball team with two marquee players and other guys that are pretty doggone good, and so we got to try to guard them. But I think our guys will play hard.
Get Jeff on the aisle, and that'll be the last question we have time for.
Hey, Coach, Jeff Gravely, WRAL. How in the world do you spend all day tomorrow? I know Justin was talking about I might take a few naps, but then, you don't want to oversleep or whatever. What's the game plan as far as how you spend the day? You could almost build a house in that time.
Yeah. Well, sleeping is not an issue with me because I can't sleep at night, much less during the day. But I'll watch a lot of tape. If didn't have my knee banged up, I'd do a lot of walking. 2010, Duke beat us by 936 points at their place the last game of the season. And I got in the car and drove to Wrightsville Beach the next day. That was the last game of the season. And I had a good friend, I'm still wearing his bracelet band here, Ted Seagroves, that passed away with pancreatic cancer. He said, I'm never going to do that with you again, because I made his butt get up and walk 7 times on that Sunday. And so, it's hard for my knee like it is right now to get up and walk, so I got to find something else. But it's a long day. I mean, it's just, we'll try to split it up. We'll come over, do a shoot around. We'll have a couple of meals and try to space things out. But I have no idea,
All right, Coach, thank you very much. That's
Thanks
all
very
the time
much,
we
guys.
have. 3:55, we should start with Providence. It will be Dunn, Bentel, and Cartwright. It's not all bad. Do you live here, or you just? Oh, so yeah, it stinks for you. There you go. See, that's the way to spin it. That's not all bad. We are now ready to begin the Providence College News Conference. We're going to start with the student athletes. If you have a question for the student athletes, please raise your hand and wait for us to get you a microphone. We'll go ahead and start right back there, Davis, and then we'll come up to you.
For Chiron, I know that you guys sat and watched the first game a little bit. I'm just curious what your reaction was to the whole scene with all the Carolina blue in the crowd.
I mean, that's kind of what I expect, you know. They're pretty much at home, I guess. You know, all their fans are close. They're right here. So I expect them to be at the game.
Is it an advantage?
It can be sometimes, I guess. You know, I guess they could just feel comfortable because they feel like they're at home, I guess.
Let's go up here.
Chris, you guys are playing Carolina in Carolina with kind of all the adversity that you've been through over the past couple of years. What does this moment mean to you playing in the NCAA tournament and winning a game last night and then playing Carolina tomorrow?
I think it's just good for the program for us to advance past the first round. We haven't done that in a while. Good for the team. You know what I mean? It showed how hard we've been working. Last night's game was definitely amazing. It's one going down in history for us. Playing against Carolina tomorrow is going to be a good game. So hopefully we just play as well as we did yesterday.
Okay, now we're going to go right up front here.
Chris, I know there's really no answer to this question, but could you, the way last night's game ended, could you imagine not having that experience had you turned pro for the rest of your life to remember?
Really, I don't really think about the NBA going pro. I'm glad that I came back from my senior year. These guys next to me, I love playing with my brothers. Last night is definitely a memory I'm always going to have, and I'm glad I came back, and I'm glad Providence College was the school I picked.
Any other questions? Can we get a mic to gentleman here?
Ben playing against Bryce tomorrow, can you kind of talk about, have you watched him at all, kind of talk about that matchup a little bit?
It's going to be a great matchup. He a great player. You know, we just going to go out there and play. You know, I know he worried about me. I'm worried about him. So we just going to go out there and let the game come to each of us.
All the way up front here.
You guys played in your first NCAA tournament game last year. Was there any kind of experience from that game that made you feel more comfortable in this game? Okay, we've done this before. This is just another game to us, or is it still a new experience to you guys?
Chiron, could you answer that first, please?
I thought it was a different experience than last year. The atmosphere in that game was, I felt it was more energetic this year than it was last year. It was definitely a crazy experience.
Chris, could you comment on that, please?
Yeah, I felt like we definitely had more experience than last year. Some of the guys that did get to get on the floor probably felt more comfortable, but the younger guys, like the freshmen, this is their first experience, so really they're just going out there just trying to feel the vibe and the energy of the atmosphere of the building. And I think everybody who got in the game did a major job with it.
Now we're going to go way back in that corner.
Chris, Marcus recalled playing you during AAU ball and everything. Just like, what do you really remember about playing against him, and like how often you've been able to keep up with him throughout his college career?
I think everybody knows Marcus Page. He had a good college career. He made a lot of big-time shots for his team throughout his years. Yeah, I played against him a couple times at AAU. Good shooter. I think everybody knows that. Good player.
Okay. Can we get a microphone right here?
Chris, 2 years ago you were on the bench in San Antonio and Marcus played really well. What do you remember from that game, and how difficult was it to sit and watch that game?
It was definitely difficult. That's the year Dante, Kadeem, and Bryce Cotton was all on the team. They made history for Providence. We haven't won the biggest championship in a while. That was a great team. They really fought out hard. North Carolina, what I remember about that game, they was rebounding. They got a lot of second shots due to their rebounding. But I think we fought to the end. And Marcus Page, he had a big-time shot during that game to put him up, I think, 2 or 3. So, I mean, that game was definitely fun to watch, but it was hard to watch it at the same time because I want to be out there and play with my guys.
Any other questions? All right, gentlemen, you're excused. Thank you very much, and good luck. Here in just about 12 minutes. want you to put on a helmet for this one? This time we'll go ahead with Coach Cooley's press conference. Coach, if you could please make an opening statement for us.
It's been a long night. Really excited that we were able to advance. Played against a great team yesterday, and we were fortunate to win late in the game. Rodney happened to be open and make a layup. Watched a lot of film of Carolina over the last probably 12 hours. Great team, well coached, incredibly balanced, athletic and long. It's a reason why they're #1 seed. They've earned it, and we're excited about the challenge and see what we can do in order to try to advance.
Start with Kip on the aisle there.
Ed, Kip Coons for the Raleigh News and Observer. Given that North Carolina has like a 32-1 record in NCAA tournament games in the state of North Carolina, and the crowd is going to be probably 80% Tar Heel.
100%.
Stand corrected. Could you have imagined the NCAA putting together a more difficult situation or venue for you in this tournament?
Well, like I said, Carolina being a #1 seed, they're going to keep those seeds pretty close to home, and it just happens to be 20 miles away from their campus or from where they live. It's a great challenge. It's not something we've played in tough venues before. We've played in front of 15, 20,000 people. It's just that you're playing for bigger stakes right now. I think the committee does a great job seeding, and you don't complain about it. You just try to maximize the opportunity.
Any other questions? Go right here.
Seeing that you've played this year at Creighton and Xavier and whatnot, is it comparable, or is it just only different because it's the NCAA tournament?
I think it's comparable, Kevin. That's a fair question. It's probably a little bit more. I'm pretty sure the building will be sold out tomorrow, and it's not about the crowd. It's about how composed you are. We've played in one of the most hostile places in the country that not a lot of people talk about is the URI Providence game, and if you can survive through some of that, this here is going to be equal to that. Ironically, they both have the same sky blue color.
Eric, right behind you there, we got a question.
Coach, I wonder if you might comment on two things. Number one, the start time for tomorrow at 9:50, the alleged start time, back-to-back, playing late games like that. And number two, Coach Williams wanted us to ask you about yoga class.
First, the 9. Wow, that's funny. The 9:50 start. Hey, man, when you're in the tournament, we can play at any time. We're excited. If 9:50 is that the time the ball goes up, let's hoop. As far as the yoga story, we were in Hawaii together on a Nike trip, and my wife asked me to take yoga for the first time in my life. And at that point, I think I was about 370 pounds. We had been out pretty late in the evening, and we had some cookies and milk to about 4 in the morning. And I tried yoga. I'll never try it again. I am the worst yoga participant in the history of that exercise. Terrible. And Coach let me know about it every time he sees me.
Go over here to Aaron.
That's funny.
Aaron Beard with the Associated Press here in Raleigh. What does your team get when you win a game the way you did, staring at elimination to, that kind of finish? Is it something that can carry over in a tournament, do you think, or is it just one game is a whole new thing?
As Mr. Bonner said earlier when we were talking, we had more lives than 17 cats. The ball just kept bouncing our way, and we happened to get the last bounce. I think it gives the guys some confidence. We looked like we were dead in the water, and I thought our young men were resilient. It just gives you a little bit more confidence, a little pep in your step. Hopefully we have some great carryover. I think in order to compete tomorrow, it's about how we come out and how we withstand their runs. We're playing against a great team, arguably one of the teams favored to win the whole national championship.
Go up here.
What makes them an elite team? Is it their kind of spurt ability, if that's a word?
Clark Kellogg word right there. I think it's their depth. I think it's their athleticism. great coaching. They're a veteran team. Page, we played against Page a couple of years ago. Johnson was in a game. Meeks was in a game. Meeks, by the way, looks great. He's lost a lot of weight. They've added Isaiah Hicks to me, who's one of the most improved players in the country. Barry is playing at a high. I think, they just got body after body after body. So, we got to make sure we stay as fresh and healthy as we can. That's what makes them so elite and one of the favorites to win the tournament.
Eric, can you go back? There you go.
Coach, Pat James, Daily Tar Heel. With Chris Dunn as well as Marcus Page and Bryce Johnson, there's multiple players, who possibly could have turned pro at some point during their career. Just, what does it say about them for them to really stick it out? And is it refreshing at all to see three, veteran players, on this stage?
Well, it's really refreshing. When you look at the NBA right now, is the NBA in a good place as far as having older men in that league? So for them guys to prepare themselves, to get a degree first and foremost, because they're going to be our age at some point and they're going to need a job. So to be educated and be prepared later in life is important. And for them to help their school, Chris being at Providence and those two gentlemen at Carolina, just tells every kid that if you trust the process and you really believe, we really talk about student athlete, I think those young men are epitomizing that and still reach their ultimate goal of being an NBA player. So kudos to those young men for wanting to be educated.
Let's go to Kip on the aisle.
Yeah, Kip Coons again for the Raleigh News and Observer. With Rodney Bullock making that winning shot for you last night, can you kind of talk about his perseverance and how he's developed and really hung in there for you over the years, coming back from injury and everything?
Sure. This is his first year playing, talking about Rodney, having been suspended his first year and then his second year going, he had a torn knee. To come back and do what he's done, he's exceeded what we thought he would do. We thought he was a good player when we recruited him. He's got a little bigger, a little stronger. But his whole thing is confidence. And when he's confident, he's had a couple of really, really big scoring days, a couple of big when he rebounds the ball, he's a really, really good scorer. So we really talk about him rebounding the ball because when he rebounds, he normally scores in double figures. But his growth and development is coming along, and hopefully he has, a 50-point game tomorrow. He needs to be Superman tomorrow.
Let's go back over here.
Ed, it's been two NCAA games for Chris, serious foul trouble in both. We've talked about it all year. He can get careless sometimes going for steals. Is this a time to have that conversation again with him? Obviously, he needs to stay on the floor more minutes.
Well, at breakfast this morning, we talked about that, with the point of emphasis with officiating now as far as, a freedom of movement. He picked up a couple of, they were fouls, chasing guy off a screen, trying to steal the ball. We're not very good if he's not on the floor for a period of time. When he's on the floor, we're as dangerous as anybody in the country.
Any other questions? All right, Coach, thank you very much, and good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.